Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I am up late crafting and decided to see if you guys wanted to hang out and craft along. This one is going to be a Valentine's slash kind of a general craft. I think it's something that can carry over before and after Valentine's, but I want to go ahead and jump in because it is late and there's a bunch of other crafts I want to get to. So, first thing I'm going to be using is this 5-piece, it just says glitter decor. It's just a bunch of cutout love signs, and it came in several different sizes. I've already pulled 2 out, and there's still 3 left. So I'm going to try to come up with crafts to use all of these, actually. I'm going to be using some white paint. I'm going to be using some Dollar Tree moss, either which direction you want to go. I ended up taking the easy route and using this sheet moss, but you could totally do this with the regular moss too. It's just a little messier. I'm also going to be using 4 of my 3" by 30" pre-painted foam core strips. The tutorial to doing this paint technique, for those of you that this is new to, that is its own thing because it takes more time to explain the painting technique. So check that out. But that is all completely made by using just Readi-board brand foam core. This is kind of my preference. I do like the paper surface and how it takes my paint products as far as looks goes. I'm also going to be using some of this as my backer piece for this and my framing piece. So this one comes in a 20 by 30 sheet. You can find it at Dollar Tree, Walmart, Dollar General, all of those places, and then some. And it's usually $1 or less for the 20 by 30 sheet. So I'm going to be doing that with my 4 faux finished strips that are cut into 3" widths. Right now they are currently 3 by 30 because I just kind of paint them out and keep stacks of these around and ready to go. You can do it whatever size you want to. Nobody's married to that size. The only reason I do that size is simply for the fact that I started out using this ruler. It made it easy. And for this particular project, you're basically wanting about 12 inches, somewhere around there in your span across this way. The other thing that I'm going to be using, I was going to frame this out with wood. With the wood look, with the faux wood strips that are painted out like this. And I was going to have it like wood on wood tones and do it like that. However, I decided that I'm going to use some white ones. This is just plain, straight up white foam core strips cut at 1". So you're going to need that. And as far as the full length of this, I'm going to play around with that once I get my piece laid into its place. And you guys can roll with me from there. So let me move this out of the way. Okay, y'all, the first thing you're going to want to do with this is get it painted. Now, I'm going to tell you that with Dollar Tree and most of their glittery stuff, there's usually a whole lot of fallout. And by that, I just mean the glitter that comes off. This has already been sanded down. You guys see all that glitter? I don't usually mind. I know glitter is like the bane of crafting existence. But it sparkles. It makes me happy. It doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, do it over something that you can, clean up pretty easy, because it is going to be a lot of fallout. And this step is not necessary, but it does make it a little easier. I just took a Dollar Tree sanding block. And I didn't even go too far with it. I just kind of knocked the surface glitter off just so that it wouldn't get all mixed in with my paint as I was going. But you can see it is still very, very glittery. And I ended up knocking off enough of this that I honestly could have scraped it off into a bottle and had a bottle of this fabulous pink color. You don't even have to do this part at all. I just kind of saved myself from getting glitter mixed in with everything else by trying to get any of the loose glitter off. And I'm still shaking glitter away. So my next step is this is going to deal with the whole glitter situation anyhow. So I'm taking just a Dollar Tree kitchen sponge. The reason I'm doing it with this is there's still a lot of texture here because of the glitter. So it just made it easier to get a fast, easy application of white paint on. I went in, you can see how fast that goes. I went in and did 2 layers of white. And you could possibly need 3, depending on how much of the glitter you knock off. It dried pretty quickly. This is a paper surface, but you can see why I said you're going to need at least more than 1 layer. It still has kind of a pink hue to it. Pinks and reds are typically really hard to cover, if you've ever noticed. So I went in, I just did the whole thing. Even though we're going to do something a little different with the heart, it just made it easier than trying to follow the lines and get the heart shape out right now. And there we go. I pretty much did that a couple times. Do it as many times as you need to get the color you want, or use a different color. Honestly, I debated very, very hard about doing this in the white or the Waverly Cashew. The cashew ends up giving a raw wood kind of look that I tend to like. So I debated, you could do black, you could do gray, get creative with it. It's going to take a little bit of time to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and put this to the side. I want you to see that this L already was kind of a little curved. I don't know if you can see that. The rest of it's flat, and I didn't have a whole lot of problem with it buckling up. But my L was already a little bit of curved when I took it out of the package. So all I did while I let it dry is, or all I'm going to do is just put a little bottle on there so it'll dry flat. And even if it doesn't, we're going to be gluing this down, so you're good. But if that worries you and stresses you out, put something on it, pop it to the side, let it dry. I painted a couple of these at one time. Now you can kind of see the difference here between 2 layers and 1 layer of paint. That's a big, big difference. You can see how pink that still is. So my next step on that, I'm going to move this to the side. We're going to slide that right out of the way to let it dry. So this was my next step. I came in with green. It really doesn't matter what green. I just kind of looked at my paints, grabbed a green that was fairly dark that wouldn't show through if I didn't get my moss completely covered. Even if you're using these things, I don't know if you guys can kind of see. You get that white up against there. I don't know if you can kind of see, but this has got like a mesh backing. And it's kind of holy. So you can actually see through this. This was really simple to do also. I'm just going to grab an easy little paintbrush for this part because I actually do want to get my line shapes. And I'm just going to kind of pop some paint right on here. And I went ahead and covered my whole heart area with paint. And right around here, I wanted to keep the shape of my heart the best I could. And I got really, really quiet while I was doing that. I was holding my breath. So same thing on this side. And I'm standing up doing this, so it's a little awkward. And there we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your moss is going to cover most of that, but I just don't want any of the white peeking through. I want it to look like it's got pretty good coverage. And you can see this is, once that white base coat is down, it's a whole lot easier to cover. Even with this dark green over that bright fuchsia, red, pink color of the glitter, that stuff it shows up. Even through here, it just made my green color a little funky when I did it on another piece. So this is where I'm at. Next step. Simple enough. We're going to let this dry. However, I want to show you what I did. I traced out the heart section. You can see. Using this, just putting it on top of my piece. I didn't want to open this package, but I just put it right on top of there, took a Sharpie, traced it out, and I got this. So right on this part and this part, I kind of did the same thing I just did with the brush. I just kind of finished it out once I traced it and did my best. The moss hides things, so it makes it a little forgiving. I'm going to put this to the side and let that one dry. And I jumped ahead and I have one that's dry. So now I've got it white. Now I've got it green. Now I've got my moss piece cut out. And you're going to see that fits right on there. I got to show you guys my little moss mesh. Now you can see that it's see-through and has holes. My little moss mesh here had a tiny little pine cone in it. I thought it was pretty cute. So all I'm going to do with this one is come in with just some Dollar Tree hot glue. I want to lay it super heavy. I don't know if you noticed that I kind of smeared it with the nozzle. I didn't want any of it to like pop through that moss, that moss netting. Gosh, you can tell I get more excited late at night when I craft. And my tang gets tangled. For those of you that didn't understand that, my tongue gets tangled. So here we are. That's cute all in itself. This would be really lightweight to hang on something that couldn't hold a lot of weight, but you could pop a little string there and be good. This would probably be cute on a lot of other things, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with it. Ooh, I'm throwing things around. I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm going to slide this out of the way. I have not determined exactly how long I wanted this just yet. I wanted to get it laid down on here and just kind of look and eyeball and determine for myself really where I want it to go. I knew that I wanted it at least 12 inches wide because I wanted to get a frame around it. I'm using the largest, this turns out to be the largest love that they had in that package. And this one measures out at 5 1/4 by 15 3/4. So this was the largest one that they had in that package. And each one progressively changes size. As you can see, it's not much of a difference, but it is a little bit of a difference. So I almost could get away with this full length, but I feel like it might be a bit much. I don't know. I'm going to drop my frames on here and we'll see. So I'm going to grab a couple of my little white framing pieces and just kind of eyeball. Yeah, I do think that I personally am going to want to cut it down some. That's just me. You could keep the full length if you're really wanting to get a sizable piece. You could build on this also if you really wanted to make it like a statement piece, a larger statement piece. I think this little piece right here is actually big enough to pull that off. Let me grab a couple more of my little strips and kind of show you. I do think that this is a large enough love piece here, with it being almost 16 inches, whoops, to pull off a substantial size piece. But I kind of wanted to do something long on the landscape kind of length. The really easy thing about doing it with your strips is that your strips help you get it aligned no matter which direction you go. And you really could. You could go really large with this, really big scale. This is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 18 by 30. This is a pretty good size piece. And I think it works fine. But I do believe I personally am going to go down just a little smaller. So this is a 15 by 30, which honestly really, I'm not hating it at the 15 by 30. When I say that I just came to craft with you guys, a lot of times that's what it is. I have an idea in my mind, but I have not locked it in stone, and you're really watching the creativity as it's happening. So this is at 5 strips, so 15. This is not a bad look either, to be honest. Really, you could go any size you wanted to. This is at my 4 strips, and this is where I kind of wanted to go with it. So this is where I'm leaning. This makes it 12 inches, and I'm probably going to shorten it just a hair where it is more like that. But I want to throw a couple of ideas out there so that you can make it custom, make it yours. You know, take the idea and run with it any which direction. Lots of different ways. I think this is super cute no matter which way you play it out. I love that bright white against this rustic wood look. I've got several mixes of my woods here, so that really gives to that palette art feel. I'm going to go ahead and trim a couple inches off of this, and then I'll show you how I'm going to frame this out. So in the process, I up and changed my mind. Big surprise, but I did. I decided that I was going to go in on my white strips and kind of get them painted out. I just went in with a quick coat of antique, doing what I do with the wood look. So now I have kind of just a basic wood color tone, and I've gone in, I'm doing my edges to make sure that my frame pieces look nice. But you can see that's a big color tone difference than the wood grains that I'm using. So I kind of thought that was cool. As much as I thought I wanted to go with the white just to kind of have it pop off of that wood, I want the love part to pop off more than anything. I also didn't end up cutting down my length. I am going to stick with this this long narrow version, I believe. More going this direction. I might actually add just one extra of my strips back. I think I am going to go maybe at that. Yes. Okay. That's where I should be. But I'm going to use this kind of wood tone to this and just kind of have it wood on wood with this white popping off. You do it your way. Customize it how you want to do. I want to get into the framing part though. So really quick, let's start assembling this and getting the frame on. So you're going to notice that because I changed my mind, my backer piece is not going to be cut to the size that I had initially planned for. And that's okay. We can still work with that. So you can see I had a scrap piece that had designs from something else. I am going to use this though. And I'm just going to have a little bit of overhang, just barely, on my back sides. And that's going to be fine with me. We mostly just want something that's going to hold these things together. I'm also not using black. I've got pretty good cuts on these. When I tested them out, I figured that I could get them lined pretty well. They're fitting up pretty tight against each other, but if you're worried about any white showing through because you have some cuts that aren't perfect on this, use a black foam core background and you won't have that problem. My cuts were pretty good, so I think I'm pretty safe on that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just start gluing these down. I'm just using Dollar Tree hot glue and really kind of coating these ends. And I'm going to pop this right in place. I'm actually going to look at it from the back side so I can see kind of where my overhang is going to be. Make sure it's fairly even. I don't want it too cattywampus. That's a southern word. If y'all don't know, that means crooked, wonky, any one of those. So I've got that established. I can just go in and pop these 4 strips down really fast and quick. And I'm just looking to see which way I want my wood patterns. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I just like kind of getting a decent visual background there. I'm going to need that glue stick in just a minute. So my ends are where I definitely want to focus my glue, down here on these ends. Just so it doesn't kind of wobble down on this direction and this direction. And last piece in place. That didn't sound good. No worries, guys. No crafts were injured in the sound of that crash. So everything's glued down. Now I've got my one kind of solid little piece here. I'm going to go ahead and measure out to do a mitered frame. And in order to do that, I'm going to need 2 long strips, 2 short strips. And really, the big question I always get is, how do you measure out the length? Well, you want the length to be exactly the length of your piece, whether it's width or height. So this side right here, the shorter side, all I've got to do is come in and trim it down. I'm just going to be using my razor blade as usual. All we've got to do now is kind of measure and mark. This should be somewhere around 12 inches since my strips are 3 inches wide. But I feel like this makes it just as easy to go in and do that. Mine is narrower down the sides, much narrower, so I only need 3 1-inch strips to make my frame. And I'm just going to come over here and trim these down. I still get a lot of questions about getting good cuts on this. Guys, there's a video for that, but I'm going to tell you, I prefer this blade over most box cutters or things like that. Even my really quality craft knives, I still prefer this. And you can see that I just have so much better luck slicing through with this. If you have fatigue or your fingers get tired, or you're having a hard time keeping your grip, these little rubber fingertip guards from Dollar Tree make it real easy to hang on to this blade. So my next step is showing you guys how to miter this. So I've got a 1-inch wide strip. Let me make sure that you guys can see. I've got a 1-inch wide strip. I want to make a perfect square on that strip. So I'm going to come over and mark 1 inch that direction. You guys can see I got a little square there. When you go, this is the hardest part of this blade for me, is actually picking it up once I set it down. As I was saying, once you go on the diagonal of a perfect square and you take that 90-degree corner in half, you've got a 45-degree miter. You're going to do the same thing on every end of all your framing pieces. One of the things that I do want to point out is this little pointy end, the longer pointy end, it needs to be along the same length. So watch that when you go to make your cut. Make sure that you're getting those shorter sections on one side, the longer on the other side. And one of the things I want you to notice, when I go to make my cut, I always start before my foam core so that it's already got good pressure. It bites in a whole lot easier. A lot of times if you start right on it, it wants to crunch down first. It wants to like cave it in first before it cuts into it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of these framing pieces, and we'll get those stuck down. Now that all my little framing pieces are trimmed down and got their 45s, the next thing I'm going to do is just take my sponge that is still kind of got a little color to it, not much, and just hit really right along this edge. You don't even have to do the full coverage like you do on the sides, but the reason we're doing that is because sometimes you can kind of see that white. However, once you kind of tap a little paint right on this edge, that pretty much gets you right where you need to be so that you don't have any of that white showing through on your frame piece and kind of busting that illusion of wood. And you can see it's not anything major. The sponge just has what little bit of paint that it still had on it from doing these to begin with. And that's all you have to do, just enough to keep the little white corners from popping out on you and giving away that it's not real wood. So my next suggestion always is to try to dry fit your frame. And by that I mean just lay it out really quick. Make sure all of your pieces are cut pretty decent. Save yourself the headache now. And here you go. It looks to me like maybe I've got I do. I have a cut that is somehow off right here, if you notice. I don't know how I managed to do that. I'm usually, I've gotten usually pretty good, but like I said, I am crafting late at night. I've gotten pretty good about getting that spot on, but I do want to show you that if you kind of take this opportunity ahead of time, it will save you the headache later. I know now that I can just kind of edit this piece right here and clean up that cut just a little bit and have that fit better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So totally easy fix. I was able to trim that down, still use that same piece, and just get it to fit snugly. I'm going to come in now and add my hot glue. I especially like to get glue closer to this edge. This is where you want it sealed really nice to the edge of your piece, so that you don't really have a lot of gaps there. That way it looks more like a solid piece from the side. I tend to go around with my frame and glue it because it makes it easier to adjust your very last piece at the end rather than trying to adjust once these are glued down. So that's all I'm going to do. Just pop this frame in place. I changed pretty much all the way around. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I didn't take away from the 30 inches. I left the full 30-inch in length. I changed my frame plans. So it's slightly different than my original sketch in my idea notebook, but still the same premise. That's the one thing about crafting with me, rather than this really being, I don't know, I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I just consider myself a crafter that is crafting with you guys. So I get to not have the formality, and I can craft as I go. And that part, I enjoy. I tend to change my mind on the fly quite a bit. Some things I know for sure before I ever get it put together, but some things, you know, as you go, you decide that there's definitely a different angle for you to go. So my next step would be to tell you, if you've got any white edges, go ahead and paint those out. Make that easy on yourself. I think I've oh, nope, I've got some white edges there. I'm going to get those painted out, and then we'll glue down our love part. Alrighty, so my edges are painted up. That way it kind of looks more like a solid edge to this. And last step, I'm just going to come in now and pop my love sign on here. A couple things I did want to share. You could always add a little dimension to this by using, Dollar Tree has their rolls of adhesive tapes and dimensional tapes. It comes on a roll. They also have the version that just comes in little squares. You could put that under there if you wanted even more dimension. Maybe use some of the little wooden cubes that they have in the Crafter Square section. I'm just going to attach mine to be flat. They also have their wooden signs that have love and those kind of things. Don't forget, you could do this very same thing with one of those. However, this was a 5-pack of these little glittery signs. Totally lightweight. I've got ideas for the other 5 loves in there, and they were all different sizes. So for the $1, I still get the idea. Sorry, I'm getting the glue all on this. I still get the idea of the word like I would with the wooden one. But this is a lot cheaper, and I'm going to get a lot more projects out of that $1. I'm going to be honest with you. The cheaper I can get a project done, the better to me. I don't know. I don't keep anything long enough to really want to make a big investment. I typically like to go through the seasons. I like to change things out. I like to kind of keep a variety going and rotate out things. So I'm going to be able to get 5 projects out of this package. I was pretty psyched about that. Don't forget, you could always do smaller versions of this for things like tier trays, you know, shelf decoration, your coffee bar, the smaller sizes, the next sizes up that I was using as my examples while painting. You can kind of see the size difference there. So you got a lot of different artwork that you can get out of just this one package versus buying one of the wooden ones. Now, if you want something that looks a little longer term and more permanent, definitely go for the wood ones. But here's where I stand. This is my finished piece. This is what I ended up with. I do realize that I've got a little paint here on the side that I kind of want to clean off. And that's it. That's all I got for you. Be looking out for the rest of those pieces getting used up. And I hope you guys get a chance to do a little crafting. You can see what I mean about this is something that I felt like, honestly, Valentine's is cute, but you could leave it out for longer. You could go in, put a little wreath right there, put some little wreaths on the sides, add something to the sides, maybe some of the Dollar Tree wooden hearts. Get creative with it. It was more or less just to show you that these things could hold up to paint. They could be turned into cute little signs. These little, I don't really know what that's made out of. The back side of it feels kind of papery, but kind of, I don't know if you guys have ever felt the paper that almost feels like it's leather, but it's still paper. That's almost what this feels like when you're touching it and feeling it. But they hold up to the paint. They hold up to the foam core really nicely as far as keeping it lightweight. This would be cute for wedding ideas, anything. So, if you guys have not had the opportunity, jump over to the Peppermint Cactus page, see other people's ideas, see what they've got going on for Valentine's and other seasons. And if you have any questions, post them there, post them here, somewhere. Somebody's going to answer you if they know what they're talking about. And I may answer you, and I don't necessarily know what I'm talking about sometimes. So just ask around in the group or down below, and we'll get answers to you. And that's it, guys. I hope you get a chance to craft, and I will talk to you here shortly when I start on my next